Hey, stranger, come join me. The water is wonderful, and I can show you the way to the next island.
A young boy is happily swimming in the sea off the docks.
Good day. I'm Alexander. What are you doing in the sea?
What does it look like I'm doing? I'm swimming. I mean, come join me. The water's wonderful. I can show you the way to the next island. Come on, jump in. A little water won't hurt you. Come join me if you're brave enough.
The waters in this cove appear calm, but there's a dimpling pattern to the surface which indicates an undertow.
What are you waiting for? I said I'd show you how to get to the next island, didn't I?
That's strange. The young boy in the water just disappeared. Oh well, perhaps he just dove under the water. Alexander is standing at the island's docks. Both the pier and the only boat in sight are in sad repair. The path leads northeast from the docks to the village. A decrepit pier juts out into the sea. The pier has nothing to talk about. The splintery boards of the pier would not be pleasant to the touch. A ramshackle wooden gangplank leads from the pier to the docked boat. The gangplank does not reply. Alexander has no need for the old boards that make up the gangplank. A worn wooden vessel has been dry-docked on a jetty. The boat is in sad shape. A hole in the hull and the condition of its boards make it obvious that the vessel is no longer seaworthy. The boat does not reply. That boat is not going anywhere. The boat has been dry-docked upon a sandy bar. It's not going anywhere. A good-sized hole in the boat's hull indicates that it's not fit for the sea. Alexander wonders if the hole was the reason the boat was dry-docked, or if the tear was caused by the dry-docking. The boat as a whole is in such sad shape that it's just not worth Alexander's time to try to fix that hole. An old canvas bag full of sand hangs off the side of the boat. It was most likely used as a bumper when docking the boat against the pier, but it's rather pointless now. Alexander wouldn't know what to do with the old bag of sand. A long, loose rope from the sails drags in the sea. It's partially rotted from long neglect. Alexander would have no use for that rotting rope. The rope is slacking off and refuses to comment. The battered old sail doesn't look like it's ever going to catch its second wind. The sail refuses to shoot the breeze with Alexander. What would Alexander do with that huge sheet of canvas? A small hatch leads down into the dark cargo area. There is no reply from the cargo hatch. The cargo bay is unlikely to hold anything of interest or have a very pleasant smell after months of dry docking. Alexander decides not to descend into the dark hole. A wooden door leads to the interior of the boat's cabin. The door is closed. There is no one there to talk to at this time.
Yeah, what do you want?
The ferryman's face has been weathered by the sea air and by worry. He's definitely out of sorts. He glares at Alexander in a most suspicious and unfriendly manner. The ferryman doesn't seem interested in shaking hands with Alexander. and Alexander is not about to force his way past him. Alexander is already wearing the ring.
I have this ring. You see, my name is Alexander, and I'm from Daventry.
Is that so? Well, that's nice and all, but I really can't do anything for you, so just walk away nice now and leave me be. Go away! The ferry's out of business! I said the ferry's out of business. What do you want to keep bothering me for?
Are you sure I can't interest you in this ring?
I can't take anything from you since I can't take you anywheres in this old ferry, so just keep your darn ring.
Excuse me, my name is Alexander. The owner of the bookshop in the village told me you might be able to help me. I hear you used to run this ferry for the islands. I'd like to talk to you if you have a moment.
You say old Allie sent you? I can't see why. The ferry's not running, you know.
I understand. I'd just like to talk to you about the islands if you don't mind.
Well, I guess it'd be all right if Allie sent you. Well, don't just stand there. Come on inside. What is it you wanted to talk about, young man?
Alexander is sitting inside the ferry's cabin. The place displays the neatness of a seaman and the sparseness of a bachelor. There are few frills and comforts in the rough wooden environment, but the sunlight shines cheerily on the oaken beams, and the portholes admit a pleasant breeze. The ferryman seems to be the only one in the cabin to address. Alexander doesn't want to take anything from the cabin unless the ferryman offers it to him. The ferryman is a disgruntled-looking man who is probably a lot younger than he appears. Despite his tired air, he watches Alexander patiently.
I'm a visitor to these islands. I'd like to learn what I can about the area.
So you said outside. What is it you want to know?
Well, for one thing, why has the island's only ferry been dry docked?
It just ain't safe to sail these days, what with the islands feuding and all. Vizier ordered the ferry closed till things settled down. Me, I don't think she'll ever see water again.
But why are the islands feuding?
You got me. Something about stolen property or some such thing. 'Tis a real shame. Things used to be so friendly.
Then this unrest is recent.
A few years is all, but it's been long enough.
Perhaps if the ferry were repaired.
This old thing? This ferry's been out of water so long she's no longer even seaworthy. Her boards have dry rot. She'd fall apart at the first taste of seawater.
But there must be some way to get off this island.
There's only one other way to travel that I know of. A magic map. The owner of the pawn shop can tell you more about that than I can, Alexander.
Tell me more about the ferry.
I remember when I used to ferry Queen Ilaria and Princess Cosima themselves. There was no thought of danger back then. They used to go visiting to care for the needy and to keep up the friendly relations between the islands. I remember their last trip. Things had started getting nasty by then, and when they came back aboard, I gathered that the Queen and the Princess had been received a bit coldly. Princess Cosima was such a pretty thing, and she was terribly upset. But who could be spreading these lies, she asked the Queen, but the Queen had no answer.
What do you do now that the ferry no longer operates?
Me? I'm out of a job. The job my ancestors have held for generations. I'm the only one trained to avoid the reef and the rocks. But that knowledge does me no good now.
Is there no other boat on the island? One that might be more seaworthy?
Boats don't last long on these shoals, as you may have found out if you got here by ship. You can be quite sure that this old ferry is, or was, the only craft on the island.
Tell me more about Princess Cosima.
Ah, such a beautiful child, and so pure of heart. Why, a contrary thought has never crossed her mind. Her mother was the same. The king and queen, they served the islands, not the other way around, always thinking about the people. Ah, they are sorely missed.
The old sea salt is a little crusty around the edges. Alexander would rather keep his hands to himself. Portholes provide fresh sea air and daylight to the boat's small cabin. The portholes seem wholly unfamiliar with Alexander's vocabulary. If Alexander wants to leave, he should just use the door. A cabinet with a dry sink lines one wall of the cabin. There's a barrel near the door. Alexander doesn't want to get into the ferryman's things uninvited. Several oil lamps are strategically placed around the boat's cabin to eliminate the island's dark nights. The lamps chose not to illuminate Alexander. Alexander doesn't want to take the ferryman's lamps. He obviously has little enough to offer him comfort. A black pot-bellied stove in the corner provides warmth on the cool tropical nights and a means for cooking. The stove gives Alexander the cold shoulder. The fire in the stove is out, and it is too warm a day to light it. The ferryman's bunk looks hard and uncomfortable. No wonder he can be so cranky. The bunk has nothing to say. Alexander isn't in the mood for a nap. Besides, he finds the thought of the old sea salt's bed linens rather uninviting. A table is positioned in front of two plain wooden chairs. The table consists of a board placed over a small barrel. There's a rabbit's foot on the table. There's a rabbit's foot on the table. It seems the ferryman is counting on a little luck. The rabbit's foot is long past even making a squeal.
I see you have a rabbit's foot. Has it brought you much luck?
As you can see, my luck's been out for some time now, despite that old charm. Why don't you take it with you? Perhaps giving the darn thing away will bring me good fortune at last.
Perhaps it will at that. Thank you.
The ferryman gave Alexander the rabbit's foot. He doesn't want it back.
Would you be interested in this ring?
I don't need charity. I won't take nothing from no man till I get back in business and can earn my own keep.
Would you be at all interested in this?
Nah, what need is a poor dry-dock ferryman for that?
What else can you tell me about the land?
Let's see. The Isle of Wonder's a lovely spot. A bit crazy, mind you. Gotta have a good sense of humor to enjoy a tour there.
What else can you tell me about the land?
The Isle of the Beast is pretty, but unfortunately, you can't get very far onto the island.
What else can you tell me about the land?
The inhabitants of the Isle of the Sacred Mountain are the most gorgeous creatures you'll ever see. If you ever get to see them, that is.
What else can you tell me about the land?
The Castle of the Crown sure is a beauty. She's the finest palace ever built, I'll warrant.
What else can you tell me about the land?
Some say that the land of the Green Isles is near the edge of the world, and that the deadly currents are a result of a magnetism that sucks life from this world to the next. Of course, that's just silly talk.
Well, I think I'll be going now. Thanks for allowing me into your home.
Posh, not at all. It breaks the boredom, if you know what I mean.
Good day again. How may I help you?
An odd-looking man is reading in the stuffed chair. He wears a vest, balloon-style pants, and pointed shoes. There's something deliberately silly about the man, as though he were a performer of some sort.
Good day, sir. Is there anything you can tell me about the land of the Green Isles?
I'm sorry, but I have no time for idle conversation. I'm too worried about the princess.
Excuse me again, sir. You mentioned the princess.
I told you I'm not interested in talking to strangers.
The fellow in the chair seems to want to be left alone.
Can I interest you in this?
Hey, I'm a clown, not a dramatist. You keep it.
Can I interest you in this?
No thanks. I find mint rather repulsive.
Can I interest you in this?
No thank you. Please let me read in peace, stranger.
Determined to learn more about the strange man's relationship with the princess, Alexander shows the man his insignia ring and formally introduces himself.
I'm sorry to insist, but my name is Alexander of Daventry, and...
I appreciate the offer of the ring, Alexander, but I'm afraid I'm already spoken. Daventry? Where have I heard of Daventry? Flying flit mice. You must be Prince Alexander. Cosima told me about you when she arrived home. How came you here?
Why, by a ship now wrecked upon the sand. But you know Cosima? She truly spoke of me?
Yes, I saw her briefly when she first returned home. She mentioned a prince to me, Prince Alexander of Daventry. I'm afraid that was before she was told about her parents' deaths. You see, she arrived home a few weeks too late. The king and queen thought they'd never see her again. It is said they died of heartbreak. I'm afraid she's blamed herself.
What a terrible homecoming. If we had only known.
Terrible indeed, poor thing. Everyone in the kingdom seems to despair with her these days. The streets are silent.
Where is she now?
The princess is sequestered in mourning. It's a rather dated tradition, and not required, but the Vizier says she insisted out of respect.
I see. You've yet to say who you are, and how you know the princess.
I? Oh, pardon me. My name is Jalo. I am clown to the royal court, and have been since the marriage of Cosima's parents, King Caliphum and Queen Alaria. Oh, those were the happy days. The pair of them were so full of joy and life, so in love. And Cosima's birth. It would be hard to explain how long they had waited, how they had hoped for a child. I mean, she was such a charming little thing, smart as a whip, kind and sweet. Oh, she means everything to this kingdom, Alexander, and to me. I'm so terribly worried about her.
About her grief over her parents, you mean?
Well, the truth is, I do not trust the Vizier or his plans for Cosima. I'm still living at the Castle of the Crown as court clown, his clown. But it is more to keep my ear to the ground than out of loyalty. I wish I knew what the princess thinks these days. If only I could find Sing Sing, Cosima's pet nightingale. I might be able to send the princess a message. As it is, I must wait for the end of her seclusion. Now I'm afraid I must hurry back to the castle. I'll try to return to the bookshop again later.
Thank you for speaking with me, Jalo. I hope we meet again soon.
An antique leather-bound book is displayed on a little stand on the counter. On the elaborate cover is the title, Ye Useful Book of Magic Spells. Alexander cannot commune with the spell book while it's on the counter.
How much for that book on the counter, merchant?
It is a fine book, is it not? I obtained it from the estate of the one and only magician this kingdom has ever had. Poofed himself into an aardvark in the end, or so I heard. I never found the spells all that useful myself, but then I lead a boring life. I tell you what, If you can find another rare book, something a bit more marketable, I might be willing to exchange the spelled book for it.
How might I obtain that spell book again?
As I said, I would take another rare book in exchange.
Would you care for some mint?
No, thank you. I do not care for mint.
Good day.
A mysterious old man also patronizes the pawn shop. He steals sidelong glances at Alexander from under his hood.
Good day, sir.
The old man just glares at Alexander and does not reply. For no apparent reason, Alexander's flesh crawls at the mere thought of touching the old man.
Would you be interested in...
No, leave me alone.
Alexander decides to be friendly and offer the old man a mint.
Would you care for a mint, sir?
No, thank you. I'll get my own mint from the dish when I want one.
Excuse me, merchant, but the ferryman mentioned that you might have a magic map of the land of the Green Isles.
Why, as a matter of fact, I do. I keep it under the counter. It's been gathering dust so long that I nearly forgot about it. It was quite a few years ago, you see. The estate of a wealthy wizard fell into my hands when he died. It was useless magical junk mostly, which reminds me, I've still got some things of his in the back that I need to dump out. Anyway, the magic map was the one true treasure in the lot. The wizard was quite old and feeble and had enchanted the map to aid in traveling. It is said that one need only desire to be on an island depicted on the map to find oneself there. It is a very valuable map, as you can imagine. Unfortunately, no one is interested in traveling these days. It is far too dangerous with the current state of the kingdom.
What would you take for the map?
I would normally want something magic in return, but since I am hardly overrun with prospective buyers, I would be willing to take anything of equal value in exchange.
What would you take in exchange for the magic map?
I would need something of great value in trade for this map.
Would you be interested in making a trade for this, merchant?
A rabbit's foot. I do not believe I could use that.
Alexander takes a closer look at the items on the counter. A magic map lies on the pawn shop's counter.
Would you be willing to take my family ring in exchange for the magic map?
Daventry, are you a king then?
No, that's my father, King Graham. I'm just Alexander.
Well, Prince Alex, she is a beautiful ring. Are you sure you can part with such a unique family heirloom?
The ring does mean a lot to me. I didn't always have a family, you know. Still, it is only gold. There are more important things at stake now.
Then you now own a magic map, Prince Alex. I will keep your ring out of sight for a few days. If you find anything else of great value in your travels, you can come back for your ring. I would hate to see it melted down for gold. Ah, and a warning about the map. It will only operate when you are out in the open and within sight of the sea. The limitation has something to do with the teleport spell ingredients. You might try the beach.
Thank you. You are very kind, and I'll remember about the map.
Suddenly, the old man in the concealing cloak sneaks past Alexander, and with a sneaky dart of his hand, steals a mint from the candy jar. The old man stuffs the mint into his mouth and wobbles unsteadily out of the pawn shop.
Master! I followed Prince Alexander as you wished from the pawn shop owner. He just abstained, just reprieved. He just got a magic map.
You fool! You've been eating those mints again! I ordered you to stop that!
Yes, Master.
Now, what is this about a magic map?
With the map, Prince Alexander could travel anywhere as quickly as I can.
I thought I took care of the only means of travel. By my scimitar, I can't have him stirring things up now. Get a hold of yourself and listen carefully, Shamir. Go to the other islands and tell them...
A nightingale perches on a high branch of the tree. She sings the most beautiful song Alexander has ever heard.
Hello, Nightingale. What a lovely tune you sing.
The nightingale only looks at Alexander suspiciously and continues to sing. Alexander can't reach the bird, and she doesn't seem interested in coming to a stranger. Alexander shows the object to the bird, hoping to interest her. The nightingale just looks warily at Alexander and keeps her distance. The mechanical nightingale is made of tin painted dreary shades of brown to match the coloring of a real nightingale. A small key emerges from its back. The mechanical nightingale's hard tin body doesn't feel anything like a real bird's soft feathers. Alexander winds the mechanical nightingale and places it on the ground. The mechanical nightingale sings a sweet, tinny tune. The real nightingale in the tree cocks her head and listens intently. The nightingale flies to a lower branch and looks at Alexander curiously, as if she were deciding that this human might not be so bad. The nightingale sings her crystalline song in the boughs of the old tree. The nightingale looks at Alexander curiously, as though waiting for something.
Hello, little nightingale. Of what do you sing?
The nightingale only looks at Alexander curiously and continues to sing. Although the nightingale seems interested in Alexander, she would never allow him close enough to grab her. Alexander shows the object to the bird, hoping to interest her. It seems that the nightingale is no lover of the taste of peppermint. Alexander shows the object to the bird, hoping to interest her. The nightingale seems to have a natural distaste for the rabbit's foot. The little bird couldn't do anything with something that heavy. Alexander holds out the love poem to the nightingale, hoping that she perhaps is the nightingale that Jallo spoke of, and that she might be able to take the words of love to her mistress, Cosima. The nightingale swoops down and grabs the poem. She flies off towards the castle, perhaps to Cosima?
Sing Sing, what have you found? A scrap of paper? Oh, this is no mere bit of paper, but words of love. Who sent this? It must have been Abdul. Oh, Sing Sing, will he never give up? You must be careful, pretty bird. Stay away from Abdul. I don't trust him so close to you. Now go!
The little bird returns to her branch without the poem. Alexander wishes he knew what happened to his message of love. A large round pot is one of the pottery pieces on display outside the shops. Alexander sorts through the odds and ends that the pawn shop owner dumped into the pot. Magic exploding gum wrappers, a shattered crystal ball, a cracked wand, a fake thumb. Near the bottom, Alexander finds a little glass bottle labeled ink. It appears to be empty, but Alexander decides to take it anyway. You never know when a small bottle will come in handy. Alexander's carrying a little ink bottle. It appears to be empty. Alexander shakes the bottle and imagines he hears a faint swishing sound, but decides he is mistaken. Alexander decides to open the empty ink bottle.
It's stuck. It's... Whoa! The ink bottle isn't empty at all. It's full of invisible ink. Not very strong, but not bad.
Alexander doesn't want to waste his invisible ink. A thing like that might come in handy. The magic map is made of thin leather and has lifelike drawings of the islands on its uneven surface. Alexander remembers what the pawnshop owner said about only being able to use the map out in the open and within sight of the sea. He correctly surmises that the map will not work here. Alexander pulls out his magic map. The magic map lays out what Alexander assumes is the whole of the land of the Green Isles. The distinctive islands are separated from each other by the deadly sea. An ornate compass marker directs the bearer of the map. The Isle of the Crown lies at the south of the map. According to the magic map, the Isle of Wonder is a comma-shaped island poised in the sea to the west. There's a small island labeled Isle of the Beast on the east side of Alexander's map. A large island named the Isle of the Sacred Mountain dominates the north of the land of the Green Isles. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. Alexander is standing on the small sandy cove of a rocky island. Around him, sheer granite cliffs block any further movement north, east, or west. To the south, he is blocked by the sea.
Hello? Is there anyone here?
The only reply is the sound of Alexander's voice echoing back at him from the cliffs. There's an ugly flower growing near the base of the cliff. Alexander picks the flower and is startled by its hideously strong skunk-like odor. For a moment he can smell nothing else. Alexander notices an unusually large coal-black feather lying on the beach. Alexander takes the feather. Jagged boulders surround the small cove of this rocky island. The cliffs ignore Alexander. The rocks are too heavy to be moved. There appears to be no way past the cliffs. Though roughly hewn, the cliffs do not provide regular handholds for climbing, and they seem otherwise impenetrable. The granite cliffs cannot be scaled by hand. There appears to be something etched into the face of the cliff. Alexander decides to get closer. The rock has been etched by some unknown hand. One may need to read about the Logic Cliffs in the guidebook to the Land of the Green Isles in order to understand this mystical inscription. Huge blocks of stone erupt from the granite cliffs. Alexander stares with wonder. That's quite a way to welcome a guest, if indeed it is a welcome. Large boulders have pushed their way from the cliffs to form a rough staircase. The stone steps pay no heed to Alexander's voice. They remain fixed in place. The steps cannot be moved any further backwards or forwards. Oh no! Alexander loses his balance.
Whoa! 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 Ow! Hey!
Alexander is standing on top of a small granite step which sticks out of a sheer wall of cliffs, and it's a long way down. The cliffs cannot be scaled by hand. Alexander examines the strange etchings in the face of the cliff. Reading about the ancient ones in the guidebook to the Land of the Green Isles may help a puzzled journeyer. The stone beneath Alexander's feet trembles as more steps emerge from the granite cliffs. Alexander examines the strange etchings in the face of the cliff. 4 plain stone buttons have been carved into the cliffs. One may need to read about the logic cliffs in the guidebook to the land of the Green Isles in order to understand these stones. The stone beneath Alexander's feet trembles as more steps emerge from the granite cliffs. Alexander examines the strange etchings in the face of the cliff. Reading about the ancient ones in the guidebook to the land of the Green Isles may help a puzzled journeyer. The stone beneath Alexander's feet trembles as more steps emerge from the granite cliffs. Alexander examines the strange etchings in the face of the cliff. The rock has been etched by some unknown hand. One may need to read about the logic cliffs in the guidebook to the land of the Green Isles in order to understand this mystical inscription. The stone beneath Alexander's feet trembles as more steps emerge from the granite cliffs. Alexander finds himself, finally, at the top of the cliffs. Exhausted, he steps over the lip of the plateau and stands.
Why do you make such an effort to climb the cliffs, young man? The winged ones who live on this island have the power of flight. You could have it too, if you'd only eat a berry from this magical flying nightshade bush. See? The sweet berries will make you float like a petal on the wind. Try some.
The old woman has a pleasant, grandmotherly face, but something about her makes Alexander uneasy.
But who are you, matron?
Who cares? I mean, I am only a poor old woman who wishes you well, handsome stranger. Think of me as your grandmama, if you like.
How can this plant give the power of flight?
Listen, son, I'll be happy to answer any questions you like, but only if you at least taste these delicious berries. Come, stranger, trust me. Think of what I'm offering you.
Grabbing at the old lady wouldn't solve anything.
Would you be interested in this?
Oh, you don't need to offer me anything, you sweet, sweet boy. My only interest is in seeing that you get what you deserve.
Would you care for a mint?
Mint? Really? Ooh! Oops! I'll just be going now.
How odd. That woman simply disappeared. Blackberries grow only at the top of the bush, as though straining towards the sun. Alexander is standing at the top of tall cliffs. To the north is the peak of a mountain, rising to meet the clouds. To the left is an ominous set of bolted doors. Huge doors are set into the solid rock of the mountain. The heavy doors give away nothing. The huge doors are locked tight. Somebody obviously wants to keep something out or something in. In the distance, Alexander can see the peak of a majestic mountain rising into the clouds. Alexander can't reach the mountain without help.
Look, an intruder! Hold! How did you get up here, human?
I climbed the cliffs.
That is not possible. No one has solved the cliffs of logic in several centuries. And if the cliffs were to be solved, it would certainly not be by a human.
I didn't mean to trespass. I only wanted to visit this beautiful island.
No visitors have been welcome on the Isle of the Sacred Mountain in years. Not since the Red and White Queens had spies in the guise of friendly visitors steal our island's sacred golden fleece. But we will not display such foolish trust again. You will have to answer to Lord Azure and Lady Ariel. They will determine what will be done with you. I can assure you, it will not be pleasant.
With what trickery did you master the cliffs of logic and reach the city of the Winged Ones?
Only the magic of clear thought, my lord. I meant no harm.
The cliffs of logic. It is the sacred oracle's prophecy, Azure.
Yes, Ariel. It is lucky for you, human, that climbing the cliffs of logic is part of a prophecy that I cannot ignore. We have just been ordered by Vizier Al-Hazred himself to dispose of any strangers that might land on our fair isle. But the prophecy would have a different fate befall you.
The prophecy predicts that whosoever climbs the cliffs of logic will defeat the Minotaur. The Minotaur has violated our sacred catacombs and eats our young in sacrifice. Our own daughter, Lady Celeste, was taken there only this morning as his most recently demanded offering.
A dilemma, then. Whom shall I obey in regards to your fate, the oracle or the crown? But since Al-Hazred did not dictate how I was to dispose of intruders, and since you cannot possibly survive the catacombs, your imprisonment there should serve both purposes quite admirably.
I will not resist you in this, my lord. I shall do my best to save your daughter.
First, I must tell you that the catacombs are a labyrinth of rooms, a place of exceeding danger. You will need many tools and clear wits to survive it.
Azure, he must be allowed time to prepare for the task, if only in the slight chance that he could actually save our Celeste.
Oh, very well. Intruder, my guards will take you to the beach. Prophesied hero or spy, any soldier must be granted time to prepare for battle. Be warned, if you have the courage to actually return to the Isle of the Sacred Mountain and face your destiny, my guards will have orders to take you to the catacombs on sight.
I understand, Lord Azure.
If by some miracle you succeed, human, the prophecy grants you a visit with the sacred oracle. Her powers are mighty, her vision all-seeing. Many of our own citizens would be willing to risk certain death in the catacombs for a chance at a meeting with the oracle. May that thought give you the courage to return.
Oh, I will return, Lady Ariel. You have my word.
Alexander pulls out his magic map. Alexander feels a strange pulling sensation. Alexander is standing on a rocky beach. To the north is dense tropical vegetation. Near the shore are a dozen or so oyster beds. Large craggy boulders lie on the beach as though pushed up from the sea by giant hands. Alexander doesn't need to carry around the dead weight of a rock. The blue ocean stretches on for as far as Alexander can see. Alexander's voice gets lost in the rippling of the tide. A string of letters floats in the water. The letters spell out, "Where are you going?" Alexander's heard of alphabet soup, but this is ridiculous. The sentence floating in the water has nothing new to say. Alexander wades into the sea to get the strange object in the water. The ocean currents tug at Alexander's legs. That object is just a bit out of reach. A group of small boulders are pleasantly arranged near the oyster beds. Oyster beds line the seashore. Most of the oysters are sound asleep. The sleeping oysters only snore in response. Alexander doesn't wish to disturb the oysters who are sleeping soundly. One of the oysters is sitting up in bed and doesn't look very happy. He seems to be the only one who can't sleep. In the oyster's mouth, Alexander can see a glint of white.
Why aren't you asleep like the other oysters?
Oh, I'm so weary, but I can't sleep. I have a terrible ache in my mouth.
What's wrong with your mouth?
No offense, but it hurts too much to talk.
Why don't you let me see if I can help?
No way! No one's looking in my mouth. I hate dentists.
The little oyster looks far too grumpy to enjoy a good tickling. That won't do anything for the little oyster.
If you're having trouble sleeping, perhaps you'd like me to read to you.
Hey, that would be great!
2 dulcimers raised to the degree of 40 half-dulcimers, divided into equal parts by the third of a cackle of grouse geese, put over the result of 10 fine mackles, albeit small fine mackles, stretched over the total of 53 1/8 bottles of wild beast lard.
Alexander is reading to the oyster that can't sleep. The oyster is trying to listen to Alexander, but he appears to be getting sleepy.
Yields a gilded minnow of precise measurements, 2,069 centidrills by 3,023 6/7 puns, not punts, as might be expected. This is not to say, however, in any sense whatsoever, that deviations in mean temperature of 5 or 6 dregs or so.
There's a large pearl inside the oyster's mouth. Perhaps the pearl is what's keeping the little fellow awake.
Indicate a fabrication or derivation sufficiently broad enough to exacerbate the conclusions uncovered in due course with regards to the dimensions, consistency, mass, or thickness inherent in the menial suckling grouse.
Alexander makes a grab for the pearl.
Hey! You fixed my mouth! It feels great!
The little oyster drifts into peaceful slumber with the rest of his oyster friends. The little oyster is sleeping peacefully now that Alexander's removed the irritating pearl. Alexander doesn't want to wake up the sleeping oyster. The flawless pearl is the largest Alexander's ever seen. The oyster is sleeping peacefully without that pearl and would be unlikely to want it back. Alexander appreciates the beauty of the pearl. Alexander picks up the object floating in the water. It appears to be a string of letters. They say, "Where are you going?" Alexander decides to keep the odd sentence, even though it is incomplete. To the north, the island is dense with vegetation. Alexander thinks about calling into the distance, but reasons that it would probably do little good. Alexander can't do anything with the distant foliage from here. Alexander hears someone coming.
"5 fierce guards of the isle we be. Watch for a foreign man," said he, "with ears and nose, tongue, hands and eyes. Its nature cannot be disguised. If man it be, then man it dies. Old Tom Troll, smell your smell. Do that which you do so well."
A gnome with a huge nose stands before Alexander. Colors of flame burst from the center of the incredibly stinky flower and drip onto its petals. The flower's appearance is as flamboyant as its smell. Alexander contemplates touching the flower, but doesn't want to get the flower's stench on his hands. Phew, that flower stinks. Alexander holds the flower of stench out to the gnome with the jumbo nose.
Tom Troll I am, that's all I'll be. My nose knows all on land and sea. A flower of stench has washed ashore. A flower 'tis all, and nothing more. Listen, hark you, broken oar, do your duty as you swore. With your ears, please tell us more.
odd-looking gnome stands before Alexander. He has incredibly huge ears. Alexander winds the tin nightingale and plays it for the gnome with the monumental ears.
A nose is not a way to spy. My ears cannot be told a lie. A nightingale is all there be. No man is near, and so say me. Taste, Grump, that we might know whether friend or whether foe.
A squatty little gnome stands before Alexander. He has a huge mouth and a very long curled-up tongue. Alexander holds the mint out for the gnome with the gigantic mouth.
Grump knows a tasty treat. It matters not what others bleat. No danger is this one so sweet. Trilly dilly, use your hands. Is it beast or is it man?
A gnome with very large hands stands in front of Alexander. The rabbit's foot has long, soft fur. The long fur of the rabbit's foot is soft to the touch. Alexander rubs the soft fur of the rabbit's foot and hopes for a little luck. Alexander holds the rabbit foot out for the gnome with the huge hands.
Be all you mad? What aileth thee? A bunny can't trill merrily. A hare does not at all taste sweet. A rabbit here is all we greet.
Old Bill Batter, never fatter, vision can resolve this matter. Look you now and end this chatter.
A gnome with gigantic eyes is standing before Alexander. Alexander's carrying a little bottle of invisible ink. Alexander pours the contents of the empty-looking ink bottle over himself.
By all that's beauteous, fair, and sightly, 4 morons do I sleep with nightly. There's nothing there at all, I say. Enough of this. Let's now away.
Alexander did it! He's fooled the guards!